When most people hear the word compounding, they think of growth. They think of money multiplying quietly in the background, turning small investments into something big over time. And while that's true, there's another side that isn't talked about enough. Compounding can also work in reverse. It can keep people stuck, and in many cases, it quietly keeps them poor. The same force that builds wealth can also lock people into financial struggle. The compounding trap starts with debt. Every loan, every credit card balance, every payment that carries interest is its own form of compounding. If you borrow money and don't pay it back quickly, the interest starts multiplying in the same way investments grow. But instead of working for you, it works against you. A balance of $1,000 at 20% interest doesn't sound like much at first, but if you only pay the minimum, the debt grows, sometimes doubling or tripling over the years. That's the trap. The longer you stay in it, the harder it is to escape because compounding is no longer your friend. What makes this worse is that many people don't recognize it as compounding. They think of debt payments as just another monthly expense. They pay what they can, assume it's normal, and don't see how the interest is multiplying in the background. That's why credit card companies thrive. They understand that compounding works better for them when customers only pay the minimum. Over decades, millions of people end up transferring wealth to lenders simply because they didn't escape the compounding trap early. But debt isn't the only version of this trap. Another way compounding keeps people poor is through habits. Every repeated behavior has a compounding effect. Spending $5 here or $10 there doesn't look dangerous in the moment, but over years, the pattern compounds. That daily choice to spend instead of save, to buy instead of invest, adds up to thousands of dollars that could have been working for you. By the time someone realizes it, years of missed compounding have passed. The trap isn't just financial, it's behavioral. Inflation also plays its part. If your money sits in a low-yield account, inflation eats away at its value year after year. It's another kind of compounding, but in reverse. Prices rise a little every year, and those increases build on top of each other. A dollar today doesn't buy what it did 10 years ago, and 10 years from now, it will buy even less. If your money isn't growing faster than inflation, you're moving backward without noticing. That's one of the quietest traps, because it doesn't feel painful in the moment. But over decades, it erodes savings until they're worth far less than expected. There's also the compounding of missed opportunities. Someone who waits 10 years to start investing might think they're only behind by the amount they didn't save, but they're also behind on the growth that money would have produced. That's the double loss of delay. Not just the dollars uninvested, but the compounding returns that were never allowed to start. The longer the delay, the greater the gap becomes. By retirement, the difference can be enormous, and it's why two people with similar incomes can end up in completely different financial situations. What ties all of this together is that compounding doesn't stop. It's always working. It doesn't care whether you're rich or poor. It simply multiplies what's already in motion. If you're in debt, it multiplies the debt. If you're investing, it multiplies the growth. If you're stuck in spending habits, it multiplies the effect of those habits. And if you're building assets, it multiplies those instead. The trap is when compounding is allowed to work against you for too long, and by the time you notice, the gap feels impossible to close. The wealthy understand this difference. They do everything possible to avoid compounding debt and maximize compounding growth. They pay off high-interest loans quickly. They avoid unnecessary liabilities, and they focus on putting money into assets that grow. That shift, protecting themselves from negative compounding while leaning into positive compounding, is one of the simplest but most powerful differences between staying stuck and moving ahead. Breaking out of the compounding trap doesn't require perfection, but it does require awareness. The first step is recognizing where compounding is currently working against you. For most people, it's credit cards, car loans, or lifestyle choices that eat away at income. Every dollar going toward interest is a dollar not going toward growth. Shifting even small amounts from negative compounding to positive compounding makes a difference over time. It's also about urgency. Many people believe they'll fix things later, but compounding punishes delay. The longer you stay in debt, the more it multiplies. The longer you delay investing, the more growth you miss. Every year of waiting compounds the problem. That's why starting early, even with small amounts, changes everything. Compounding rewards time, and time is the one resource you can't replace once it's gone. There's also a mental side to the trap. People often underestimate the power of small actions because the results don't show up immediately. Paying down an extra $100 on debt looks like nothing at first. Investing $200 a month feels small compared to your future needs, but compounding doesn't reveal itself right away. The trap is that people give up too soon, thinking it isn't working. The truth is, the results are invisible in the beginning, but they accelerate later. Those who quit early never get to see the payoff. Another part of escaping the trap is reframing how you measure progress. Most middle-class households measure wealth by salary, possessions, or lifestyle upgrades, but none of those compound. What compounds are assets, skills, and habits. If you redirect focus from income to ownership, from spending to investing, and from short-term comfort to long-term growth, you shift compounding in your favor. Over time, that change creates a gap just as large as the one debt creates. Only this time, it works for you instead of against you. The biggest reason people stay poor isn't that they don't earn enough. It's that the forces of compounding are stacked against them. Debt compounds, inflation compounds, bad habits compound, and missed opportunities compound. Meanwhile, they never give their money enough time to grow in the opposite direction. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's a lack of awareness about how quietly and powerfully compounding works in both directions. Escaping this cycle requires more than just knowledge. It requires discipline. To stop feeding negative compounding and patience to let positive compounding work. That means paying down high-interest debt as quickly as possible. It means putting even small amounts into investments consistently. It means recognizing that every habit, financial or otherwise, is compounding into your future, whether you like it or not. What makes compounding so deceptive is its quiet nature. Nobody feels the impact of interest in the first month or even the first year. That's why so many people ignore it. A $3 coffee doesn't ruin you today. A few hundred in credit card interest doesn't feel catastrophic this month. Inflation creeping up by 3% doesn't seem like much when you're looking at a single year. But these small, almost invisible effects are exactly what build into life-changing outcomes. By the time the results are obvious, the damage has already been done. Think of two people earning the same salary for 30 years. One carries credit card balances, buys cars on loans, and delays investing until later. The other cuts debt early, puts small amounts into investments every month, and lets time do its work. On paper, their incomes look identical. But at retirement, the first person may have nothing but bills, while the second could be sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets. The difference wasn't luck. It was compounding pulling them in opposite directions. Another layer of the compounding trap is social pressure. Many people feed negative compounding without even realizing it because society normalizes debt and spending. Credit card offers arrive in the mail. Buy, now pay later buttons show up on every shopping site. Financing options are built into everything from phones to furniture. The system is designed to keep people compounding in the wrong direction. What looks like harmless convenience is really a long-term transfer of wealth away from the spender and toward the lender. Escaping requires more than avoiding debt. It requires building habits that compound in the right way. Learning one new skill every year compounds into expertise over a decade. Reading a few pages of a book each day compounds into hundreds of books over a lifetime. Investing a fixed amount every month compounds into financial freedom. Compounding isn't limited to money. It applies to knowledge, discipline, health, and relationships. That's why the compounding trap is so dangerous. It hides in plain sight, pulling people deeper into cycles of debt, delay, and wasted opportunity. But the exact same force can be the greatest wealth-building tool available if you choose to align with it. The earlier you flip the script, turning compounding from an enemy into an ally, the sooner you move from barely keeping up to building a future that grows on its own. And that's the choice everyone has to make. Compounding never stops. The question is, whether it's working for you or against